All right, John, let's talk about Lamar Jackson and whether or not anybody wants him or nobody wants him. And if it gets to the point where the Niners need a quarterback, is there a world in which they could have enough to get Lamar Jackson on their team? And would they want Lamar Jackson on their team?
I hadn't thought about it till our guy, Tim Kawakami, wrote an article on it.
Because you had thought about it and dismissed it.
Well, because to make an offer and trade for him, you have to have 2 first-round picks. Now, as a capologist had texted me that it doesn't, be specific on how you get the 2 first-round picks, when you get the 2 first-round picks in terms of like making trades, trade players, teams with multiple first-round picks. It doesn't have to be your top first-round pick. So that it's pretty open-ended. But here's what I know for a fact. The Niners not only don't have a first-round pick, they don't have a second-round pick. So the only way for them to acquire first-round picks, there's only really a couple ways. One, they could trade Nick Bosa, who needs a massive contract, and get the Jalen Ramsey, Khalil Mack, right? Well, I guess Jalen Ramsey got 2 1s and a 2. If you ask the Raiders, they got 2 1s and a 3, and they gave away their second. But, they could do that. I think they have players on their team beside Nick Bosa that would have first-round value. I think you get a first-round pick given his price, especially late in the first round for like George Kittle based off his last season, Deebo Samuel. So like they do have ammunition with players, but they do not have picks. And then you have to factor in, would they be willing to give $230 million guaranteed? Maybe more. I mean, he might say, well, this is a year later. It's 235 now. Well, it's his mom. So it's very complicated, but as Kawakami wrote, like he's a level of a player where you just, especially when your quarterback situation is not Burrow, Herbert, Allen, Lawrence, Mahomes, you kick the tires. And I agree. Like you make calls, like you just kind of get a lay of the land. That's the fucking job of the GM. One thing Lombardi talked about in our Cousins conversation in Lamar, like the job of a general manager is to convey the landscape of the league with positions that you need to understand other teams. Like, so it is 100% their job to make a call, figure out. But I would say their situation is very, very complicated when it comes to acquiring this player financially, and most of all, like the 2 picks that come along with the deal.
Yeah. And, I don't know if this would ever make you think twice, but what do the Niners have a problem with a quarterback?
Injuries.
And Lamar has played 12 games each of the last 2 years. Now, I'm not here to poo-poo Lamar Jackson. I mean, you put that guy in the 49ers, even if you have to subtract another 49er, and you've got an even more potentially special team.
Would you trade Nick Bosa straight up for Lamar Jackson? Because you could look at it that way. Because I would not.
If you tell me Brock Purdy's healthy and you just might have your franchise quarterback for $1 million, then I don't do that deal.
But here's my logic is independent of Purdy in the sense of I pay my head coach, and rightfully so, $12 to $15 million a year. And one of his greatest assets now is we've got to 3 conference championships, and we don't have Burrows or Mahomes or Rodgers or Brady. Nothing even close, right? So what Nick Bosa brings to the table is rare. It's very hard to find an Aaron Donald, a Myles Garrett, a Nick Bosa, right? Micah Parsons. Like there are a handful in the league, and they kind of rotate. Like J.J. Watt retires, a couple more guys, but they're very slim. And you get rid of them, you're not getting another one, more than likely, right? Because part of the way that they acquired the guy is they drafted 2 overall. Most times, like that player goes very, very high for a reason. But like Kyle has proven, now we're always looking for a high-level quarterback, but like he can do a lot at that position, So Nick Bosa's value to me,
because
I would say would be different for maybe like if Bill Parcells was my coach.
It's a good point. It's not even a counter. They do have a really good defensive line coach. We know they can maximize defensive players, but even he can't make an A player into Nick Bosa. Right.
Because there's a big difference of like resurrecting Arden Key or Samson Ebukam.
You see what I did with Kerry Hyder?
Yeah. So, I don't think it's like they turned Kerry Hyder into Nick Bosa 2.0. Like that's not happening. It is the one position, right? That like you either got a guy or like there is the gap between them and like the second tier of guys is size of the Grand Canyon.
Yes. Yeah. And you can't make up the difference with all the coaching or training in the world.
We'll
Do you think the Ravens
Jackson. We'll sign a couple guys off the scrap heap and we'll blitz a lot.
You think the Ravens would take 3 5s and 3 7s and a 6th? So one thing Kawakami writes is, there are things that you have to make go your way. You would have to catch some breaks. One of the breaks he writes would have to be, you said, let's just skip over it because you're basically saying Trey Lance being part of this trade couldn't be attractive to the Ravens. So let's just skip ahead to Nick Bosa. But one thing Tim writes is what if they like Trey Lance?
No. My point is they don't have any picks. Their first pick this year is a third-round pick.
I understand. What I mean is Kawakami wrote, if the Ravens like Trey Lance, that's the only way for this deal to work. And you're kind of saying, well, let's skip the step of if they like Trey Lance and let's go straight to they definitely like Nick Bosa. Would that be enough to get it done? Right. Because you would rather trade Trey Lance than Nick Bosa if you were the 49ers.
But I think part of it is the picks. And can you afford to give Nick Bosa $130 million and Lamar Jackson $230 million in the same offseason like that? It's impossible, I would say.
So the other part of it would be, and Tim kind of wrote what it would cost. Do you end up with Lamar seeing how this whole thing plays out going, you know what, guys, instead of, I'm not going to get $230 million guaranteed from the Ravens. They kind of got me by the balls right now. I'm not actually in control of my own destiny at this moment in time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign a 3-year, $150 million contract. I'll agree to that deal. I will not, I'm not going to take that deal from the Ravens, but I would take that deal from you, provided there's a clause in that contract that says you cannot franchise tag me and I am a true free agent, or 2 years, $100 million, or whatever it is, right? And I am a true free agent at the end of this contract. You may need Lamar to want to do a deal like that in order to even have a chance. They
do with the non-exclusive tag. They'll have the right to match any deal. And that is the complicated part that I read that Charles
Lamar
Robinson
can't say I'd take that deal from them, but not from you.
No, I read this article from Charles Robinson that basically said that some agents throw out some different ideas.
Yeah.
And part of it is that you offer that deal. They have a week to on the Ravens side to decide yay or nay. Yet on your cap, like in the NBA, I made this $100 million offer to this restricted free agent because that's essentially what he is.
It's on your cap until he says no.
It's on your cap.
Oh.
So and this is the Charles Robinson wrote a fantastic article today about kind of poo-pooing the collusion, and just it's more about the complications of everything. Because the price point you're talking, how easy would it be if the 49ers said, we're not going to sign Nick Bosa. We just too much money on our cap. He's available. They'd have fucking 10 teams be like 2 1s and a 2 right now, right? And then they would break him off for $115 million guaranteed. It would happen like that. We're talking at price points that, and this is also in the Charles Robinson, this is an owner decision. This is not like McGlinchey signs, let's say, with the Bears come next week. Ryan Poles needs the McCaskies to sign off on giving him $32 million guarantees. He's our starting right tackle. Go do it. When you give amount of money, even the 3 years, 150 purely guaranteed, you got to have that to escrow, or the $230 million, the owner is heavily involved in this. So it's the complications there of on the Niners side or any team side, but the Niners specifically, just given that they don't have the picks, is just because I look at it like their running attack would be impossible to stop. They'd have at any given time 3 or 4 running backs, right? Lamar, McCaffrey, Debo, Elijah Mitchell for the 6 games he plays, and then the undrafted free agent that beats out Ty Davis Price and Kyle turns on by October. So,
did you say Juice? Make sure you say Juice.
Yeah, Juice too.
So, all right, tell me this.
If the Niners just had all their picks and the Trey Lance situation played out like it is, but let's say they got their pick back this year. So their pick was, they had their pick and said they had to give it up. I don't even think they would entertain it anymore, given the money. Because they have a specific player who is, he's about to become, I would say, probably the highest non-paid quarterback in the history of the league this offseason, right?
Right. Yeah, he'll get paid more than some, not below the line quarterbacks, but some average quarterbacks probably, right? Not probably.
Well, Derek and Daniel Jones, he'll blow by them.
Yeah. Gino. Let me ask you this. Did it explain? So the question is then, like, let's say the Niners offered, and I think I just kind of scanned it, but you read it. There's a part in the article where Charles Robinson says, what would an agent suggest to do now? And he talks to two or three agents. And one says, compromise by saying we don't need 5 fully guaranteed. Give us 3 years fully guaranteed at the deal Kirk got in 2018. $50 million per year, 3 for 150, fully guaranteed. You want to hedge your risk. We're willing to gamble on ourselves. Would the Ravens do that deal?
They tried to offer him last year $133 million and a $250 million deal, and he told them to kick
133 rocks. Fully guaranteed.
He told them to kick
over
rocks.
How many years?
I would guess 5 or 6 extension.
Yeah.
But really the 133 true guaranteed, once you do that like separate, like little injury guarantee, they're not trying to cut him. So unless he has a serious injury, I bet the number was probably like 180, 170, right? Because if he's on the roster for more than 2 years, which he more than likely would be,
you make it.
It's just one of those situations. I don't think he would sign that deal. That was the whole point of waiting.
Did he think, because Michael Lombardi went on a big thing today about he needs an agent. Even McAfee was like, he needs an agent. McAfee's like, I respect the no agent guy, but if I was a high priced quarterback, I would get an agent. I
just think you're dealing with the numbers too high to not have some legitimate representation, right?
I thought Lombardi. Did you see what Lombardi said? He was like, or maybe it was McAfee. One of them was like, just go hire an agent and tell him your job is to do this deal. He's like, that doesn't mean you're not a businessman anymore.
Think about this.
And what guy wouldn't take a lower rate to go do this deal for Lamar?
Well, that crossed my mind too. Like, wouldn't that guy, the momentum he would get? Like, you drive around, you see like some older car on the side of the road, even if it's a nicer car, like 2007 Range Rover, or 2010 extended cab F-150. There's a cardboard taped on the back that says, $22,000. You would never do that if a Ferrari. You would never put the Ferrari on the side of the road, right?
Right.
You and me, if we owned 3 condos in Stockton, for every condo was $100,000, we could probably figure out how to flip them ourselves without a real estate agent. If we owned Malibu real estate and the thing was $12 million, we would probably need some help. And it would be smart of us to utilize someone. Like, some of these people, and listen, you and I have been in a situation where an agent's helped us out. We've paid them, and then the guy told us, like, you didn't need to do that. And looking back, we didn't. But there comes a point in time where if someone can bring something to the table,
at the time.
Not at all. But one of the things in the Robinson article is this is about, like, these conversations are in the private clubs with the owners. This is not, you're not getting the deal done just with the general manager. This is, I would say, the owner is leading the charge on this because of the amount of cash, and specifically the archaic rules about the, what's it called? The escrow account, right? Because if you're talking 150, did you read the Peter King's like, a lot of people think that Mark Davis is out on Rodgers because he just doesn't want to get the $60 million. And in fairness, like, 39-year-old, I got to cut a $60 million check. You could justify it in your head pretty fast.
I don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, you could justify paying for Lamar, but like, I think the average fan and the average like former player is hooting and hollering, and it's hard to tell how often they actually believe what they're saying. I think they would be stunned. Like, okay, let's say I traded for Lamar Jackson. Let's say Jed York, Jerry Jones, whoever. Jerry might, but how many owners right now could just cut a check tomorrow for $230 million cash?
Well, not a single one of them could cut that check without, like, they wouldn't. I don't think any of them would sleep well that night. Even the ones that whoever has the most money. Right?
But what I'm saying is, do you think a lot of these these owners have $300-400 million in a savings account? Because I would doubt it.
Well, if they had $300 million in a savings account, would they drain 70% of it in one day for a quarterback? Sorry, I'm not answering your question. To answer your question, I don't think most of them just sit on that much cash. No,
no,
because when you read these stories about guys buying teams, they're like selling all this stuff just to get the cash together.
Well,
right?
Tepper sold like $1.8 billion worth of Apple stock, or Microsoft or whatever the stock was because he needed the cash.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have $1 billion. Honestly, he might not have had 300 million of cash. Why you would never have. Sometimes I get uncomfortable, looking at a cash account like, what am I doing this for? Now, I don't necessarily sometimes have a stock I feel good about, but I can't imagine that number being 150x. You would be like, well, why is it sitting here? I have access to all these sweet IPOs.
For my emergency QB fund.
Yeah, I can buy buildings. We already have money set aside for normal free agents, but that number is nowhere near for one player, right?
What was the flying J check to Deshaun?
I think it was like 180 or something. Because some of it was partially injury guaranteed or whatever. It was the biggest check in the history of the league by a country mile.
Deshaun only took $1 million this year.
You see the Texans just got in trouble because during the COVID year, they paid for Deshaun to work out at like a specific gym, but they cut the check. It was like $26,000.
$26,000. They were like, yeah, we don't agree with this, but what did they lose? They lost a significant pick, didn't they?
5th, I think.
Oh, well, you get a good tight end in the 5th.
Did Deshaun tell on him? Fuck,
you know what? I'm going to move on with my life, but first I'm going to cost the Texans $26,000 and a 5th.
The story of the day, though, is Tiger Woods telling his wife or girlfriend that she was going to go on an all-expense-paid vacation, took her to the airport, locked her out of the house, and she was never allowed back.
Does ESPN, when I clicked on the story yesterday, it said girlfriend, Tiger's girlfriend.
It's his girlfriend.
But not, no, it's his ex-girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend.
It's his ex-girlfriend. So how about I want to hear more about the verbal agreement that she could live there for 11 years and she's only lived at the house for 5 years. You see that part of it?
Well, because they've been dating since 2007, so yeah.
Yeah, but you see,
2017, excuse me.
She claims that they agreed 11 years. I don't know what. Hey, babe, what are you thinking? I think 11 years living here, that would make me happy. Like, why would they have agreed to 11? Was it like, I would love for you to? Did he say one day, I can't wait for you to be here for Charlie's prom night? And she was like, 11 years. That's 11 years from now. That's what I'm owed. So he's only there 5. So she wants the 30 million.
And there's
30 million. How about, where did she have 40,000? His people delivered her $40,000 in cash that she got to the house.
No, I thought that she never got her 40,000. That she claims that he kept it.
Oh, I thought it was they gave it to her and then spread rumors about how she got it or something like that, which I never heard those rumors. I want to hear those rumors.
I might need to dive into the story deeper because I thought that the 40K was money that was at the house that he just kept. Again, she ran his restaurants, quit, once they started dating. So, I mean,
right.
All the money I would have essentially, in his mind, probably under my umbrella.
The drop at the airport.
One guy, now he is cheap. I think it's fair to assume that the Tiger's not worried about 40K.
Okay, so maybe I might have read it wrong. Those working for Woods subsequently removed her personal belongings and took 40K in cash that belonged to her before making scurrilous and defamatory allegations about how she obtained the money. I took that to mean they gave her stuff back, but
they gave her the stuff, did not give her the cash.
Gotcha. Gave her a hotel room and paid for certain expenses for a short period of time. Based on the time left on her 5-year tenancy, she argued she's entitled to roughly $30 million. I could see you would want to break the NDA. Like, I want to tell my story.
You're not allowed to sign the NDA and then attempt to break it. Isn't that the whole point of them?
Well, I think how many NDAs get broken all the time, don't they?
She claims that I guess there's a new law, right? Because if there is abuse, sexual, physical,
that's right.
There's a new rule that you're allowed to shatter it. And I think she's claiming that there is. We'll see. Tiger's got the best and the brightest fighting for him, so good luck to her.
How does common law work? People are chatting about common law would make them husband and wife after that point, 11 years. Then someone said depends on the state. In Canada, common law is 6 months. I think here it's around 10 years in the States. 6 months.
I didn't know there was a common law. You live with someone for 10 years, they just become your wife? What the fuck? That's not that. Is that
7
true?
bedrooms? I don't know. I've heard that term before, but I don't know anything about what it means, what it actually means.
Haven't Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn been dating for like 40 years?
And they're not married?
But technically by common law, they would be married after 10. So they can file each other on their taxes? I mean, like as a married man, you get tax benefits, correct?
I mean, you could file jointly.
Which I saw a headline on the Wall Street Journal. There actually is a tax hack for, in your case, to file separately.
I have wondered about that, actually.
I didn't get to, it didn't affect me, so I kind of just breezed through it, didn't quite follow it. But there is a hack.
Get a little peek right after I tell Alyssa we're going on vacation. And call her an Uber. Rock Sauce has given us, God only knows, 370. Is that Qatari dollars?
It's definitely not American dollars, correct?
If that is Qatari, then it's $100. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, we answer questions. We appreciate the support and you watching Rock Sauce. I'm not exactly clear on that monetary value. Who is the better rushing quarterback, Lamar Jackson or Colin Kaepernick? Interesting. Lamar, I'd say Lamar's more wiggly.
Oh, it's not even debatable. He definitely is.
And from a straight line standpoint, I mean, Colin's strides were so long. But Lamar's a runaway from the defense guy also.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to look at Kaepernick's stats. Lamar has 24 rushing touchdowns. In his first 3 years, 5-7-7, back-to-back 1,000 yards. Obviously missed a ton of games the last couple of years. Still ran for 1,400 yards.
Read me his yards per carry, yards per attempt.
4.7, 6.9, 6.3, 5.8, 6.8.
So what would you eyeball average that to?
I don't even need to eyeball it. His average is 6.
Okay. So Collins 4.8, 5.8, 6.5, 5.0, 5.8. So 5.4 and 13 rushing touchdowns. You said Lamar had how many rushing touchdowns?
He has 24, but he had 14. He had 21 through his 20. No, he had 19 through his first 3 years when he was healthy.
On top of that, give me some of his passing numbers.
Yeah, 36 touchdowns, 26 touchdowns. Yeah, it's just
completion. But what's his career completion?
64 if you want to round up. His MVP year 66, then back-to-back 64.5.
Yeah, Colin was 59.8. 21 was his high for touchdowns in a 16-game season. He played another 16-game season, which he threw 19 and 10 picks.
I'd say Kaepernick had the splashier plays, definitely throwing. Lamar the better overall player.
Do you think if we check 40s, Lamar's faster? He looks faster, but Colin had the long stride, so he might have been.
I'd say Kaepernick's game speed in his 12-13 was fucking hauling ass. But Lamar remember early on, he would be sprinting around. He had a little RG3 going for him.
Yeah.
You'd get some open ground. See ya.
Rock Sauce, thank you for the question. And whatever amount of money you just gave us is appreciated.
Yeah, I saw someone say Kaepernick's stats are pretty bad. They don't equal. I mean, it's been so long now, but the way people used to talk about him.
What we saw was just, part of it is who were you even comparing him to? He was 4-2 in the postseason, which helps. But, it was 58%, 7 touchdowns, 5 picks. But some of the greatest, the throw to Anquan Bolden in the back of the end zone again, was that the Seattle game?
Yeah.
Was still one of the most amazing throws and catches I've ever seen in my life.
Was incredible.
All right. On that note,
adios.
Later, y'all.